What's up, everyone, and welcome back to the W Sports Podcast. We are into week one of the NFL season, and we are recapping all that has happened so far from Thursday's week one matchup with Super Bowl champs, reigning two-time Super Bowl champs Chiefs, all the way to the Brazil game, where we had a pretty good game with Philadelphia at Green Bay, and then all the action that has happened so far today as we record. So, number one, thank you all so much for joining the show today. And if you have not already, hit that subscribe button because you are a part of the W Sports Podcast. You got to get the dub. That W stands for win, of course, in case you guys didn't know that. We just want to throw that out there. And if you subscribe, you're going to be part of the 4 episodes per week that we're doing. And this is episode number 2. So if you want any college football, go to yesterday's episode. You can see that. But Tubby, welcome back to the show, man.
What is up? It's always nice to wake up on a Sunday morning and go, man, we got football.
A lot of it, too. But is it nice that because I'm surprised that NFL doesn't do week 1 London game and have like 8:30 to like all day long?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess they already got their one international game in this week.
That's very true. That's very true. Let's just start there. So your Packers. The Jordan Love injury was a little bit more severe. I think we texted about it, and I thought it was a more of an ankle sprain than a knee. Is
Mm-hmm.
this just bad luck, or do you think this is kind of a result of the field?
Honestly, I think it was just kind of bad luck for the most part. Guy gets wrapped around his ankles, and one guy is trying to tackle him one way, the other guy's trying to tackle him another way. It was what it was. I don't think the field played a part in that, but the field was absolutely atrocious.
Yeah, yeah, it did look bad. I will say because I mean, obviously watching the game, there's no doubt that you
Mhm.
didn't watch it. How did you like the fan experience from being able to hear it in Portuguese and stuff like that? All the announcements. That was
I
pretty
mean,
sick.
it is pretty cool, especially if you, I mean, for Portuguese, I guess it makes it even
Uh-huh.
cooler because you can hear it. But yeah, I mean, I think it's a cool experience, but it's also one of those things like where what I get you're trying to expand the game, but why are we doing week one in Brazil, especially when they tell the players, all right, you can't really leave the hotel because of the crime down here. And so you can't really do anything. And then, okay, the Eagles, you're going to be the home team. So you're going to have the hotel closest to the stadium. But the Packers, you're going to have a hotel that's about an hour, 2 hours away, depending on traffic.
Yeah, which out there it's a massive, massive city. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I definitely understand what you're saying. I think it was a great crowd. I think
Mm-hmm.
everything was fine. No one was unsafe. I think a lot of that has to do with the high profileness of being in the NFL
Yeah.
versus just a person visiting the city. Obviously,
Mm-hmm.
every city has their own hot spots, if you will, but um, it was not a complete disaster like that Mexico
No,
City one a couple years ago.
it definitely was not. I mean, yeah, the field condition was bad, but that's
Yeah.
one thing you're going to get with the soccer field.
Oh
They're
yeah,
always going to be
tearing
cut
it up.
lower, harder for you to get footing. So I think a part of it had to have been on the equipment staff people going, they weren't really super prepared
Yeah.
for it, which is kind of crazy because, like they said, they're like, oh, during the day, the field's perfectly fine. But at night, once it starts getting darker and then the
Mhm.
humidity starts to mix, gets a little dewy, the field turns to mush.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what happened.
Well, it didn't stop the performance of Saquon Barkley or
No.
Jordan Love. And thank you, Tubby, for the recommendation. Jordan Reed. Wow. Holy cow. I don't know what I'm going to do without Jordan Love throwing the ball, but man,
Oof.
that was a great day.
Yeah, Jayden Reed, great game. Saquon, great game. Love, he had his up and downs. It wasn't the best game, but he played pretty solid for the most part. Honestly, the Packers should have won the game.
Yeah.
They
I thought they were going to.
uh, the they left a couple interceptions out there on the field. Hurts played okay, but he kind of looked more like Hurts from last year than the year before. So
Yeah.
if that continues, they may be in for a long season. The Packers defense, week one hasn't improved a whole lot, but it's still just 1 week, so we'll see what happens as
Yeah,
it goes forward.
we texted back and forth. It wasn't our exact predictions, but I could see
Mm-hmm.
those 2 games, that one and then the Thursday game, being a championship week preview with the talent that's there. Now, obviously, the Packers are going to have to weather the storm of this Love
Yeah,
injury, and I don't think Malik Willis is the guy to cut it. But we'll talk about that as we go.
gosh.
The Chiefs, on the other hand, they take care of business, and as a Chiefs fan, I'm very biased. I get that, but I also want to
Mm-hmm.
be real. I have not seen a team that has gone that deep in the playoffs that many years in a row, won back-to-back Super Bowls, come out with as much energy that they did. And it was
Hmm.
obvious that this team is excited to go back out there and go for that three-peat, but also they got better this offseason. And I look at a team like the Baltimore Ravens, who, yes, had a shot to potentially tie the game or win the game. The amount of, I'm going to say, crybabying afterwards. Dude, as soon as I saw the replay, I was like, "Oh, he's out of bounds. That really
Uh-huh.
sucks for them."
Yeah.
I don't know what to tell you. And then he just went off. The team just was
Yeah.
crying about it. I thought that was ridiculous. But Chiefs won the game again, and that works out again. It's like a 2-game lead
Yep.
because you win the tiebreaker, and they're not playing each other again. So that's a huge, huge win to kick off the season. So much momentum for the Chiefs.
Yeah. It was kind of the typical thing that we've talked about with Lamar Jackson is the accuracy. And
Yeah.
those last, I mean, and really, it started the play before the one where he missed Zay Flowers in the back of the end zone. He had likely wide open in the
Wide open.
corner and way overthrows him. And luckily, I thought he got likely hurt. It looked like likely was in, some pretty good pain there, but he came back out. And then the Zay Flowers, and everyone's like, oh, Zay Flowers needs to sit down in the zone. Well, come to find out, he wasn't even throwing it to Zay Flowers. He was throwing it to Rashad Bateman in the front of the end zone.
It's like, what in the world? It wasn't even close.
Yeah. So either way, he the accuracy was way bad. And then, yeah, it was just his accuracy wanes at time, and especially in these big moments like that is when you really see it affect. And yeah, it just was one of those things where Lamar
Mhm.
wasn't able to get it done. And honestly, that offensive line, that they're in for a long season if this is what the best that they can do. Because granted, Chiefs have a good defense, but that offensive line's in for a long season, and so is Lamar Jackson. The great thing for them, Lamar Jackson's got some wheels on him, so he
Dude,
may
yeah,
not get
ran
hit as
for
much, but not
he
great.
kept on running. They didn't get the ball enough to Derrick Henry. And I don't
Yeah,
understand why this
I
keeps
mean,
happening. The dude is gonna probably go 13 carries for 40 yards in the first 3 quarters, and that
yeah,
fourth quarter is when he's gonna rip off
yeah,
just these massive runs where he's going to end the game with 120 yards and 2 touchdowns because he wore him out. Stop misusing your running backs in the NFL, please. And here's why. We have a quarterback crisis still. Here we are, the whole offseason, we're thinking there's this new wave of good talent. And tell me a rookie that had a good debut.
I mean, Jayden Daniels had a decent game for the most part if you're just looking at stats,
Yeah.
but really he didn't have a command of the offense. Honestly, none of the
Mhm.
rookie quarterbacks played good.
Yeah.
It, it
Dude,
just what I think I counted maybe three guys, maybe four if you want to throw maybe. I mean, Stroud had a solid game, but I feel like he didn't play his best even though they won. I think you look at Josh Allen, played great.
yeah. Yeah.
Baker Mayfield played out of his mind.
Let's go, Baker.
And then the surprising one, Derek Carr played really good today.
He did. I mean, he was playing against a horrendous
He
Panthers team.
he absolutely was,
They're
but
gonna be
hey,
legit.
he played good, and that's
He
all
did.
they need. That he played really good. Other than that,
Yeah.
most of the quarterbacks were pretty mediocre to subpar.
Yeah. Jayden Daniels had 2 rushing touchdowns. Anthony Richardson had 56 yards and a touchdown, but was 9 for 19. He still had 200 plus yards. It was just such a weird day. It just didn't feel like anybody had a lot of momentum. And that's my
Yeah,
thing is I feel like if this is what's going to happen for Caleb Williams to not, don't even think he threw for 100 yards. It was
no,
93 yards,
93.
14 to 23. I'm not sure is that this guy is going to be able to break those rookie records for the Bears.
Not
It
after
doesn't look
not
like it.
yeah, not looking the way that he threw today. I mean, yeah, Bo Nix looked real bad.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
yeah, Caleb looked bad. And then even
Terrible.
if you look at last year's quarterbacks outside of C.J. Stroud, you mentioned Anthony Richardson, but I mean he had 200 yards, but more than half of those yards were on two plays, and one he was just kind of, I'm just going to throw it up there and see what happens. And luckily,
Mhm,
Alex Pierce was open down the field,
mhm.
and uh, Will Levis looked absolutely awful today. The bonehead play where he tries to pitch it forward and basically cost your team the win. Quarterback play. I mean, Bryce Young looked real bad.
Yeah,
It,
Bryce Young. Dak
I
Prescott wasn't crisp.
I mean,
Deshaun Watson,
Deshaun Watson.
45 pass attempts for 169 yards was terrible. Gardner Minshew did Gardner Minshew things, and I will say,
Yeah.
the Chargers beat the Raiders, and I bet Jim Harbaugh is like, you know what, we passed the ball too much, 17 of 26 for 144 yards, but hey, they
Yeah.
got the dub.
Yeah. Antonio Pierce had some really questionable coaching, a really questionable coaching performance today,
Yeah.
for the most part. But yeah, I mean, I will say real quick before, like on ESPN, before the game started, they're talking about, how many total yards, how many yards, passing yards that we're going to see from Deshaun Watson. It was like over under 225 or 235 or something like that. And I was like, he's going to go.
Under.
I said he's going to go 17 for 39 for 167 yards and throw 2 interceptions. Boy, I almost nailed it.
You did, dude. That is spot on, especially, I mean, just the amount of pass attempts is so great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that was a quarterback play. Maybe it's just timing. I don't know what it is. Uh, there's a lot of factors. I think, if I look at this, the running back side of it, there was
Mm-hmm.
some of the top running back performers. Obviously, those teams won.
Yep.
Bijan Robinson, I mean, that Kirk Cousins was just a mess.
Yeah.
Bijan Robinson never got to break free. What is are there teams maybe that you're looking at? They're like, hey, this is, we were kind of worried, but I'm more worried about it. I know it's only a small sample size, and any given Sunday, any team can win. It's the
Yeah.
NFL for a reason. These guys are all really, really good. That's why they made it. So, what's that?
It's
Is there a team out there?
it's the Bengals. We see the Bengals start slow and then you pick things up. But the thing is now, right now, is you don't have a run game really to lean on. At least back then you had Joe Mixon. And if the offense was you kind of sputtering in the passing game, at least you had Mixon to hand the ball off to. Yeah, Zach Moss had a great season last year when Jonathan Taylor was out. We
Mhm.
don't know exactly what we're going to get from Chase Brown, but the offense, I mean, what was he, 20 for 29 or something like that, but it only had like 160 yards.
Mhm.
And so it just basically tells me, okay, they're dinking and dunking because they're not able to get open downfield. Their teams aren't really respecting the pass because they don't have to respect the run. So they can just sit back and just, okay, we'll play this, small zone and let them just pick, just dink dunk here and there. And that's about it. So I think that they are probably, there's a more worry, I think, for them, especially with the expectations for them.
Yeah, I definitely agree on that one. I think some of the teams that, when you look at what's there, the Bengals have a very little continuity
Mm-hmm.
of, and I talked about this yesterday's episode for college football, but just the clubhouse culture right now, that's my locker room culture. Sorry, talking
Yeah.
baseball here, is not at where it has been in the past. It doesn't seem as tight knit. I think it,
Yeah.
it feels like this window is closing earlier than what's expected. Now, again, it's week one. We still have 17 weeks, 16 more games to go, and they can correct it like they did last year. But who's to say like what it will look like in the AFC North? You can't get behind by too much too quick because that's a very competitive division for the most part.
Yeah.
And the Steelers went out and just a classic Arthur Smith
Gosh.
weekend. Just ran
Yeah.
the ball 20 attempts for 70 yards. But hey,
6
there you
field
go.
goals.
It's great. A win's a win, right? Justin Fields, man.
Oh gosh. Yeah.
Yeah. Any of those top performers? I know you mentioned Josh Allen is obviously, I think, one of the top performers. Any other top performers you have from this weekend so far?
I mean, Baker Mayfield. I mean,
Yeah.
Baker went out and just balled out this week.
Mhm.
It was great to see because honestly, I was worried about the Buccaneers. And yes, granted, they are playing a bad Commanders
Mhm.
team, but I
Mhm.
was worried about Baker and the Buccaneers going into the season. With the change offense coordinator, the offense line not playing so great. Towards the end of last year, man, Baker looked crisp. The wide receivers looked good. Chris Godwin looked like Chris Godwin because you
8
know what?
catches.
They decided to put him back in the
The
slot.
slot.
Who
Oh
would have
yeah.
thought?
Should have listened. They just got
Yeah,
to listen.
yeah,
Yeah. So far, and right now as we're recording, Cooper Cup and Puka Nakua, they're still in the game, and they're getting a lot of targets. The game's a slow moving one, but it's
yeah.
a good slogfest. I don't know what you want to say,
Mm-hmm.
but any other thoughts you have? NFL Week One standing out to you before we wrap the show up?
I mean, I think it's going to be a very top heavy. Like, I think we're going to see a lot what we're seeing with college football, where it's going to be a lot of top heavy, and there's not going to be a whole lot of teams that are going to really have much of a shot. I mean, especially the AFC wise. I mean, you got Kansas City, you got the Ravens. I think you can throw the Texans in there, and maybe. I mean, the Bills looked a lot better offensively
Mm,
than I thought they would. I think you can maybe throw them in there, and then the NFC is even smaller
messy.
pickings. I think.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the 49ers, and I don't know if you can throw the Eagles in there quite yet. And now the Packers, depending on how long Jordan Love
Yeah.
is and how they're able to maneuver throughout that. I mean, luckily for them, their schedule is somewhat easy these
Yeah.
first 3 weeks. So maybe they can keep their head above water and maybe win one or two of these games, sneak it out. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's going to be an interesting season. Who's going to be able to really compete with the Chiefs is going to be the biggest
Yeah.
question.
It may just be who gets hot at the right time.
Yep.
Yeah, and you know what? To help those teams, they should just subscribe to the podcast if they haven't already, because you just gotta listen. So that's today's episode. That's week one wrap up. We will be back with you all again later this week. So make sure you subscribe to the show because we're gonna have predictive weekends. So we're gonna go over some of the big matchups, some of the games to watch, maybe fantasy advice. So you can always comment on the channel. We'll make sure we get you those answers. But thank you all as always for joining the W's podcast. We'll see y'all next time.
See ya.
See you.